Imagine a country smaller than most cities, 500,000 people, a cluster of islands in the Atlantic that most football fans couldn't find on a map a month ago. Now imagine that country in its very first World Cup holding mighty Spain to a draw. And then, just days later, going 2-1 down to Uruguay, a two-time world champion, on the brink of defeat and refusing to die. This is not a fairy tale I'm making up. This happened tonight in Miami. So we're breaking down Uruguay 2, Cape Verde 2. We're breaking down how the smallest story at this World Cup became the biggest, why Uruguay are now in serious, serious trouble, and how a team nobody believed in is one game away from writing history that will be told for generations. Let me give you the scale of this because the numbers are genuinely staggering. Cape Verde, population around 500,000, ranked 63rd in the world, playing in the first World Cup in their entire history. They are the definition of an underdog. And in their opening game, they held Spain, the European champions, one of the favorites to win this whole tournament, to a goalless draw behind a 40-year-old goalkeeper named Vozinha, who made 7 saves and became an overnight legend. That alone was one of the stories of the tournament, but football has a cruel way of saying, okay, that was nice, now do it against a two-time world champion, and that's exactly the test Cape Verde walked into in Miami against Uruguay. And here's the thing that makes this even more beautiful. Even the crowd was against them. Miami Stadium was packed with Uruguay fans chanting for La Celeste all night. And one of the Cape Verde players said something afterward that I think sums up the whole spirit of this team. He said, once you're on the pitch, a lot of things become equal. That's the mentality. They don't see the rankings. They don't hear the doubts. They just play. And did they play the 21st minute? Cape Verde win a free kick about 34 yards out. Now, from that distance, most teams are thinking about crossing it in. Not Kevin Pina. He stands over it, he spots a gap in the Uruguay wall, and he absolutely pile drives it through that gap and into the bottom corner past the diving Fernando Muslera. 1-0 Cape Verde. And listen to this, because this is history. That was Cape Verde's first goal ever scored at a World Cup. Their first goal in their history, and it was a 34-yard rocket against a two-time world champion. The little island nation wasn't just hanging on, they were leading. So here's my first question to you, and be honest in the comments. At 1-0 down to Cape Verde with all your possession and all your quality, if you're Uruguay, do you panic? Because Uruguay are a serious team. Federico Valverde, Bentancur, Ugarte, Pellistri. These are players from the biggest clubs in Europe, managed by Marcelo Bielsa, one of the most respected coaches in the game. They had 66% of the ball, and for a while, that pressure looked like it might come to nothing, but right at the end of the first half, the champions woke up. In the 44th minute, Uruguay finally breached that 40-year-old's goal for the first time in the tournament. Maxi Araujo, who'd done the exact same thing against Saudi Arabia, headed in a tap-in to make it 1-1. And then, deep into first-half stoppage time, the game flipped completely. Agustin Canobio slickly redirected an Araujo cross into the net to make it 2-1 Uruguay. 2 goals in the space of about 6 minutes right before the break. The underdog dream looked like it was crumbling. Cape Verde had given everything, taken a shock lead, and now they were walking into the dressing room a goal down, having watched the champions turn it around in the cruelest possible window, right at the end of the half. For most underdogs, that's where the story ends. The big team has reasserted itself, momentum has shifted, game over. But this is where Cape Verde separated themselves from every other underdog at this tournament. And it ties directly into the biggest tactical mistake Uruguay made. Because in the second half, Uruguay took their foot off the pedal. They were 2-1 up in control. And instead of going for the third goal to kill the game, they sat back and tried to manage it. And I want to be really clear about this because it's the central lesson of the whole match. In this expanded, balanced, unpredictable World Cup, you cannot do that anymore. You cannot ease off against anyone. There are no easy games. And Uruguay learned that the hard way. The 61st minute. A substitute named Helio Varela, who'd been on the pitch for just a couple of minutes, was about to teach Uruguay that lesson. Matias Oliveira, the Uruguay defender, played a terrible, lazy sideways pass. It was the kind of pass you only play when you think the danger has gone, when you've mentally switched off. And it drew the veteran keeper Muslera way out of his box into no man's land. Varela read it, pounced on the loose ball, and with the goal gaping, tapped it into the empty net. 2-2. And the celebration told you everything. Varela leapt into his teammates' arms and stood on their shoulders, flexing, while the Uruguay players dropped their heads. It was his first ever international goal, and he scored it to rescue a point against a two-time world champion. And Cape Verde weren't even done. They actually went looking for the winner. They had chances through Montero, through Pico Lopez, through Laros Duarte, who forced a crucial save out of Muslera late on. They racked up real attacking moments. This was not a team hanging on for a draw. This was a team that genuinely believed it could beat Uruguay. Now, in fairness, Uruguay pushed hard at the other end, too. They had a goal ruled out for a tight offside, and Valverde and Bentancur had chances to win it late. So both teams can feel they might have nicked it. But a 2-2 draw, when you weigh up everything, is a result that means everything to one team and feels like a disaster for the other. So what did we learn? For Cape Verde, this is one of the great underdog stories in modern World Cup history, and it might not be over. 2 games, 2 draws against Spain and Uruguay. They have shown organization, belief, a wonderful goalkeeper, set-piece quality, and a refusal to ever give up. And here's the incredible part. Going into their final group game against Saudi Arabia, they may not even need to win to reach the round of 32. A nation of 500,000 people is 90 minutes away from the knockout stages of a World Cup. Let that sink in. For Uruguay, this is a near disaster, and I have to be honest about it. 2 draws from their first 2 games, just 2 points from a possible 6. Bielsa himself took the blame afterward, talking about organizational mistakes falling on the head coach and saying they paid a very high cost. And he's right. This is a talented squad that has now twice failed to close out games. They conceded first against Saudi Arabia, and here they let a winning position slip by easing off. And now their reward is a final group game against a Spain side full of renewed confidence after demolishing Saudi Arabia. Uruguay's World Cup hopes are now hanging by a thread, and they did it to themselves. So I want to hear from you. Is Cape Verde the best underdog story you've seen at a World Cup? Did Uruguay throw this away by sitting back, or did Cape Verde simply earn it? And can this tiny island nation actually make the knockout rounds? Drop it all in the comments. I genuinely want to know. And here's my prediction. I think Cape Verde get the result they need against Saudi Arabia. And I think this team of part-time underdogs from a 500,000 person nation walks into the round of 32 and becomes the story of the entire tournament. And I think Uruguay, for all their talent, are now in a dogfight they might not survive. Write it down. Come back and tell me if I called it. Because this is why we love this game. Football is the one place on earth where a country of 500,000 people in their first ever World Cup, with the whole stadium chanting against them, can stand toe-to-toe with 2-time world champions and refuse to lose. They were counted out before they arrived. They've now drawn with Spain and Uruguay. And tonight in Miami, a substitute scored his first international goal, climbed onto his teammates' shoulders, and reminded the whole world that in football, the size of your nation means nothing compared to the size of your heart. Thank you so much for watching. If this story gave you chills like it gave me, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel for a full breakdown after every single World Cup match, and I'll see you after the next one. Take care.